Y'all ready for them Chiefs?
Well, a very beautiful now Monday morning, Chiefs fans. Hey, how about that game? Or how about those Chiefs? Yeah, what a great win here. We uh, we plan to do this game after this show after the RGR post game live, and so now you're blessed with two midnight lives by the look of the clock here. So, in back-to-back nights, or should I say back-to-back mornings? But anyway, or maybe it's afternoon or evening wherever you're at. But regardless, we are coming off another Chiefs win here. Yeah, we're going to celebrate. I think Gooch will join here in a couple minutes, and yeah, I have the ability to share stuff tonight, so we're going to start sharing some stuff. So go ahead and throw out any comments or questions you have in the chat, and I'm gonna get to it here, and yeah, we'll have some fun here, just going over some things from the game, some of the things that we were gonna put up last night. We'll just hit some stuff here, and have no idea how long we go here. Part of that's going to depend on Q&A and depend on if Gooch jumps in here. With all that said, we have two accolades to react to tonight, and the first one for us here, if I pull it up. Well, we'll put them in the order that they happened. So, first one up for us. Congratulations to Travis on passing Rob Gronkowski to become number 5 all-time on the most career receiving yards by a tight end list. So, I think there's a good chance he gets to number 4 by the end of the season. I think he needs about 700 more yards to go. So certainly not easy, but if he continues if he continues on as he has in past years, this shouldn't be a terribly difficult feat for him. And I believe number 4 is actually Shannon Sharp, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong on that one, but I think Shannon Sharp's number 4 on the list. Congratulations to Travis on that. Excited about that one, and we also have another one on here as well. So we got to throw out a congratulations to not only Travis, but to his in baseball you'd call it his battery mate. That's kind of the way I look at it, as well in football. But anyway, to his quarterback here. So congratulations to Patrick Mahomes on getting to 20,000 career passing yards. And I believe the stat for that is he did this in 67 starts, which puts him at the number 1 quickest quarterback to 20,000 yards by way of starts, breaking, I believe, Matthew Stafford's record. Stafford got to 20,000 yards in 71 career starts, I believe. And so Pat beat him by 4 games there. Congrats to our Patrick Mahomes. So we got those congrats out of the way here. And I'm going to just roll with a few other stats that are pertinent to us that involve this game. Um, and as Q&A comes up, or as Gooch joins us, we'll pivot accordingly. So next one on here is this thing from Next Gen Stats that says that Patrick Mahomes earned a 91 Next Gen Stats passing score after his performance in the game. And so this season alone, Pat has 2 such games of a score of at least 90 plus. The rest of the NFL has 2 as well. So take that for what you will. PFF would heartily disagree with Next Gen Stats. And so that's PFF's problem. And yeah, we're going to claim Next Gen Stats over PFF for obvious reasons. So let's see, where do I want to go here? We got another one here from Next Gen Stats. We're just going to continue on here with that. So on Pat's awesome touchdown to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he scrambled 39.4 yards before that little toss, whatever you want to call it, to CEH. And he's done this 4 times. According to Next Gen Stats, he's thrown 4 touchdown passes in his career now after scrambling at least 30 yards. So, and no other quarterback has more than 1 since 2018. So take that for what you will. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that Chiefs fans go crazy about for Pat. So, and you know, you think back to that famous Super Bowl run against the Bucs, and that dart he ended up throwing that was not caught by Chiefs receiver, and maybe that's number 5 on there. But regardless, this is a kind of another little cool stat on there for the night. Let me see if I have anything else for you that is today or this game related. Well, there is this one that came out of the RGR Discord, so I'm going to throw this one up here because it's an interesting stat, and it's one that the Brady stands won't really care to see, which makes it all the more delightful for us to throw this one up here. Think FLDB for this one. The number of career starts that it took until a quarterback's defense or special teams gave up 43 plus points in a game. Until this game, it had never happened on a Tom Brady team that his defense and special teams gave up 43 plus points in a game. It took Peyton Manning only 3 games before his defense / special teams did it. It took Mahomes only 7 games. 7 career starts until his defense / special teams did it. Drew Brees 8, Aaron Rodgers 11, Dan Marino up there at 48. So we're talking 3 whole seasons for Marino, 3 whole seasons worth of starts for Marino, and then Joe Montana there at 180. Yeah, you're looking at what, 10 seasons maybe trying to do the math in my head, but I'm way too tired for that. 11 seasons, something like that. And Brady had never happened before, so this was an interesting one, and it kind of goes to show the team support that Brady's had um, during his career. I don't have a stat for um, the the amount of times that the refs have aided him in wins, so you'll have to hold on to that one until we can dig that one up. All right, this one isn't tonight related, but I know it's one that Chiefs fans are going to enjoy. Um, so let me throw this up really quick, and I think that's about all I'm going to throw up tonight. This was a little fun one that was thrown out by let's see, I believe it was Matt and Derek here. Yes, Matt and Derek. Jody Fortson's career. He's had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 4 touchdowns, 58 yards. So, in his brief career so far, so he's caught 7 out of 8 passes this came his way. 1 out of every 2 targets he's seen has ended in a touchdown, and he has 58 yards. So that is what it is. So that's a pretty cool one there as well. Yeah, we'll see if Gooch is going to jump on here. Otherwise, I'm going to give my quick thoughts, and we'll wrap it up here, as it's been a long day here. So I know people are concerned about the defense giving up as many points as they did. So that's what I'm going to start with here. This is usually where I might come off as being really pessimistic. But in this case, I'm probably going to go a different direction than most people or people would even expect here. And say that I'm not necessarily concerned about it. The way that I viewed this game, and even if the Chiefs had a certain plan in mind, I think that the moment the fumble and the recovery happens on the opening kickoff, that changes some things. The moment that the Chiefs take advantage of that turnover and they score a quick touchdown, I think that changes some things. It's totally conjecture on my part. I have no proof of it. But what this game felt like, what I saw, it seemed like the moment we went up, it's kind of like we only wanted to give the Bucs an incomplete picture. And the Chiefs kind of did this a couple of years ago when we played the Bucs. It's like, and it seems like we do it, especially at times when we're playing divisional rivals, when we're playing NFC opponents who we do believe we could possibly meet again in the Super Bowl, where the Chiefs hold back in one way or the other. Either they're not giving the full playbook on offense, they're not giving away their full scheme, what they want to do on defense in that game, and they're trying to win it with one hand tied behind their back, sometimes one hand and one leg tied behind their back, so that the next time that they fight, the other team is surprised when they're getting whooped by someone with 2 hands and 2 feet that are untied and are available. It's what it felt like to me. Clearly, what we saw last week, in my opinion, in the Colts game, the defense put a lot of time and a lot of preparation into that game. Looking back on it, what it feels like to me is we looked at the Colts and we thought, you know what? We can stop this offense and we'll play well enough to win the game. And to be fair, we pretty much could have. We've talked before about you can fill in the blank and there's 100 things that you can insert. And if just one of those things had been different, the Chiefs still win that game. So I'm not knocking the strategy, and I could be off, but that's kind of how I'm seeing it looking back on it. This game felt like just the opposite. And maybe the offense had been looking ahead. Maybe the offense was spending more time to game plan for this game. Maybe that's something that they've been doing and we've never caught on. The offense game plans for one game, the defense, takes the time and they game plan for the next game, whatever. But that's just kind of how it felt. Like Spags and the defense took the last game and they thought that the offense can pretty much just show up and that's enough. And again, 100 different variables. And if one of them turns out differently, the Chiefs probably beat the Colts. This game felt like it was kind of the opposite, where it's like we weren't going to show the Bucs what we can do on defense. They saw things on tape, but they didn't get to experience it. And so that's just kind of how I'm looking at it. Yeah, we did a few things, but on my first glance, things felt vanilla on defense. When I look at the all 22, that might be, I might see that I'm completely off here. But that's just the way it felt. Like we said, the offense has a lead. The offense looks in control. We're not going to show anything on defense unless we have to. And we really didn't. So we kept it pretty bland. Certainly didn't do what I wanted to do. Certainly didn't do what my game plan was, which was press the receivers, cover those short zone, cover the short pass areas. NFL teams have all kinds of advanced statistics. They know Tom Brady. Steve Spagnuolo knows Tom Brady's hot zones. They know where Tom Brady likes to go when he sees certain looks. They know who his favorite players, they know all of this. And Tom was getting the ball out quick, and we weren't really doing anything defensively to impede that. Like if you press and you blitz, you might get to him, and you might get to him a lot, which is what I wanted to see, because as a 44-year-old man, he doesn't want to get hit. And if he sees this coming all night, maybe he does pick you apart. But make his night not fun. What's fun for Tom Brady is when you play soft vanilla defense, when you're not bringing a pass rush against him, and you just let him go out and play pitch and catch with his receivers. Just move the ball down the field. He loves that. As a 44-year-old man, he feels like, hey, you know what? I could do this for another 10 years. And he probably could. But if you're blitzing and you're doing all this stuff and you're making him work mentally and physically he's taking a shot, even if you don't get the sack, if he takes the hit and he has to pick himself up off the grass almost every single play, his body's going to feel that. And he's going to feel it a lot differently than most quarterbacks because of his age. So that was my game plan. He's getting the ball out quick. We did a good job there eventually of adjusting and getting it to we had multiple guys ready for the quick pass to Fournette. Fournette's just a big guy and hard to take down. I would have liked to seen us bracket Mike Evans. I don't know what the solution there is with his size. I know that early on. We saw Fenton on him a few times. We saw Watson on him. Kind of mixed results from Watson. Would have liked to seen him get his head back around a few times. We were giving up the middle, and it, it felt like, especially after watching the Chiefs' defense against the Colts and some of the things they were doing, it just seemed like Spags was holding back this week. It felt like Andy was holding back last week. Spags was holding back this week, and that was intentional. Or maybe I'm just hoping it was intentional. Um, I know Chiefs fans were happy to finally see Sky Moore, to see some usage from Sky. Pacheco had a great game running the ball there. I think one of my favorite plays outside of Pat's crazy touchdown to CEH was Pacheco run where he's losing his balance and he's starting to go down, but instead he spins and he basically spins, does a spin move on one foot and lands and maintains his contact and then powers through for, what seemed like about another 5 or 6 yards. And the last like 2 or 3 yards, he had 3 guys trying to tackle him. Just a fantastic play there. So, yeah, I see Gooch is on here, and I know he's going to have some things to add. So let's get him on here and get his take of the game. Gooch. Gooch, can't hear you. You there? Not sure why we can't hear Gooch yet, but might have to pop back on here first in a second. I know he had some technical difficulties last time. Gooch,
I'm in the house. I'm in the house.
Hear you now.
What's up, boys? How goes it?
Hey, so thoughts on the game?
Nice, solid performance from the offense. I think the only reason why the defense gave up 31 is because they had to keep getting on the field because Mahomes and them kept scoring. I think the one INT, again, he let his footwork get out of control. It was coming too easy, and he was just kind of lobbing some stuff up there. Because I wasn't even watching on that particular play, I wasn't even watching the ball. I was watching him, and I was just watching his footwork. And then I heard the interception, and I was like, yeah, that's what I figured.
Hey, I didn't see that, but yeah, we need to go back and look at this when the all 22 comes out, because it looked to me at first, and I'm not. It could be both. It can be multiple things at the same time. Multiple people can be at fault there, but it really looked like Juju did some kind of like weird hesitation, like the route he was running. And we know that they give him multiple options there. It looked like he was stopping, but Pat was expecting him to keep going, and he kind of realized that because it looked like he had hesitated, and then he kept on running. So I don't know how much that played into that.
I didn't see the play because I was busy watching him, and at the angle that the TV was showing, I was just watching him. Because it was almost the first half was a master class in quarterbacking he was the actual point guard. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't trying to do too much. He was just taking what was there. Who actually ran the ball? Couldn't believe that. Um, it was a really good game. I went into it with, oh man, this is going to be close. Um, and I was also thinking, like, if we can put on a show versus their defense, then that's just going to give the offense confidence. And sure enough, I don't know how much more confidence you can get on 41 points.
All right.
And it was good to see Fortson get a TD.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I put up the stat from Matt Derrick that I had in the Discord that Fortson so far in his career has 8 targets, 7 receptions, 4 touchdowns, and like 58 yards. So 1 out of every 2 target he's catching a touchdown on.
Which is a step in the right direction into giving Kelsey less snaps at his age. So, I mean, it's also good to see him actually throw a couple passes Sky's way.
Right. Are you where you can view this? Because I can throw this interception up for a few seconds as long as it doesn't end up getting us banned. So
Yeah,
I think if I can just throw it up for a few seconds here, we should hopefully be fine. So we'll see here. All right, let me get this added to the stream here. All right. Very good. All right. Here we go. So this is the interception. Here we go. Oh, they're not going to show it from that angle. Yeah, you can't really see it. You could probably see his footwork there. But unless they show this a second time from the other angle. Man, that's not the one they showed on the that sucks. Okay. Well, never mind for that.
We'll just have to wait for the all-22.
But yeah, there was this weird. It was kind of a hesitation thing. Like he was getting ready to sit over the middle, and then maybe he read Pat's eyes or something. And I don't know. It just seemed like, or he realized, hey, I'm not open here, and then he continued on. All I know is there was this weird slowdown, hesitation, and then all of a sudden he continues to run, and Pat's like, what? So I don't know. I mean, I could totally be off here. And again, we could both be right. It could be part, the mechanics and part that Juju and Pat were reading his option route differently, assuming there was an option route, which again, it's an assumption. So, but anyway, go ahead.
I know that Andy was pissed after the interception. No, that wasn't it. It was you could tell he probably called the play and it didn't work, but it should have. He was hot. Clyde dropping that floater made me hot because that was another touchdown. But anyway, like I said, 41 on a defense that had 1 sack of Mahomes, and after all that trash that Barrett was talking, I just kind of chuckled inside.
Yeah, and this was a defense that had previously given up 3 touchdowns through the first 3 games of the season. So,
right. Also, and I want to point out that how everybody's on Josh Allen. The Ravens have a younger secondary like we do, and they struggled with the Ravens for most of that game. They got a game-winning field goal, and we went against one of the top 3 defenses in the league today and dropped 41 on them.
Right. Yeah,
I
again,
don't think I've ever seen Brady so dejected.
it's a beautiful thing to see.
I'm telling y'all, Bolton is the soul stealer.
Well, any more thoughts about the game, Gooch?
I like how they. Hang on a second.
Okay. Well, while Gooch is doing that, I will throw one more share up for you guys, and since Gooch brought it up here, um, I guess I got a little bored with the game here, so I started working on some stuff. Go ahead.
I think it was great that they started out hot. I think they needed to. I think it was good to see Mahomes fired up the whole game. It was good to see them come out to try and prove a point that what we saw against Indianapolis is not who the Chiefs are.
Right.
It was an overall good game. I enjoyed it. I really didn't think that we were going to be able to run as well as we did. So that's a credit to the O-line and Andy scheming it up. I heard them say Orlando's still dealing with a bunch of tiny little injuries, but some of that stuff, man, he's just not quick enough.
Right.
Like, they, on numerous occasions, made him look bad.
And this was a point I was trying to bring up, in the off season when we had been talking about the negotiations, because I think, and I'm not saying it's not true, in any other time in the NFL, but it seems especially true in today's NFL that defensive coordinators are willing to find every little thing to exploit. It seemed like it used to be like players had their position and they they stayed there, right? And then you see Micah Parsons lining up all over the place. You see some of these safeties lining up all over the place, and defensive coordinators are willing to do whatever. And if that means they're gonna take their speed rusher, who'd normally be going up against a guy like Wiley, and they can do it over on Brown's side, and they can scheme up some things to have a guy, spying Mahomes, so that when he takes off to the right side, now all of a sudden that guy's bringing pressure or whatever. They're going to do that. And I don't think this is something that it's just going to be a matter of, Brown's got to play more tennis throughout the year and he's going to get better and he's going to improve there. I think that good defensive coordinators are going to exploit it. And if Brown has a good week where it's not happening, it's because it's not a good defensive coordinator, or it's a defensive coordinator who's really being arrogant or something. So that's one of my big concerns right now, is that, we're going to continue to see defensive coordinators saying, "Hey, you're our speed rusher." And, they're going to study film on what these guys are doing. They're going to know exactly where his weaknesses are. And unless Andy does more to help protect him, are we going to see this all season long?
Yeah, probably. And I wanted to touch on Robert's comment. Yeah, it almost seemed like they had to put Chris on the edge in order for him to use got given special abilities to rush the passer. And it's not like he's going against their all-pro center. He was like, that guy's a backup, but he was struggling until they started putting him on the edge. Problem is that now you've got Dunlap and Karlaftis. I don't know if Chris was just struggling with that guy. I don't know if they were triple teaming him. I mean, because, that guy that could go one-on-one with Frank. I'd like to see more push up the middle, too. I also was really, really getting mad when they showed Snead's tackle over and over again like he intentionally tried to hurt Brady, which he really didn't.
Yeah. And listen, I'm with, I think we talked about this last night, right? When I was given my game plan, and it was rush Leo up the A gap, like have him blitzing off the A gap. And I know Robert asked about Leo as well, and maybe that's part of it. But for me, that was the thing. Brady, the easiest way to get to Brady is interior pressure. He's not like other quarterbacks. If you go to the outside, he can step up and he can make the throw. If you're collapsing the pocket, from the interior, he can't step up, and he's not really mobile enough to get outside. So, to me, that's a big deal. But you have to either press the receivers, or you have to clog up those. You have to clog up with short zones where he likes to go. And Gooch, like I was saying earlier, Spags, every NFL team has all kinds of analytics. They know, all these spots. They know the heat maps. They see the same heat maps that we do, and they probably have much better ones to where they know all of this. So drop the guys in those zones. If Brady has to hold on to the ball, 2.5 seconds or whatever, where he likes to throw, you have that advantage. Blitz them up the middle. You don't have to send 6 or 7 guys. You can have your 4 rushers do some line moves, and let Leo Chanel do what he did in college. And at the very least, you stop them from doubling Chris Jones. And if Chris Jones gets one-on-one, a lot of the times he's going to win those. But I think the most frustrating thing to me, Gooch, and you can tell me what you think, and I'll have to go back and look at the game, but it seemed like this offense was 2 things. Brady had 2 reads. His mid to deep read was Mike Evans, and his short, quick read was Leonard Fournette. Is Mike Evans open? No, dump it to Fournette. And it was like, that's how you do it under 2 seconds. It's Evans open. Okay, I'm throwing it. Evans not open. I'm dumping it off to Fournette. And it seemed like Spags got smart about the Fournette part. But then, he's like 260 pounds. So, he was kind of bowling over our guys. It's like having, outside of say Nick Bolton, it's like having Derrick Henry running at 2 or 3 defensive backs. Good luck to those guys, type of thing. So, but yeah, I also think that if you have Willie Gay playing in this game, and it's not a knock on Nick Bolton, who, for the most part this season, I think's looked good in pass coverage, but Willie Gay's got much better lateral speed out there, so on those plays, if he's covering Leonard Fournette, he's not getting a chance. Like, as soon as he's catching the ball, he's getting hit immediately by, Willie Gay, whereas Nick Bolton's, a step or 2 slower. So, it takes him a little bit to get out there. So, I mean, there is that to it, right? So, again, I said at the very beginning, Gooch, that I thought, you weren't here for it, but I thought that it seemed like the defense purposely played vanilla, whether that was their game plan or not. Once we got the fumble recovery at the beginning and we scored, it just felt like last week was Andy and Spag saying, we think the defense needs to be the lead here, and the offense, we don't have to put as much time in it and we'll be fine, which was almost true. And this week it was more of a concerted, the offense is where we're going to put, is where we're going to have to show more than vanilla. And, hopefully the defense can pretty much get by with it is how it felt to me. But I don't know what you think, Cooch. But yeah, Robert, where was Chanel? That's a great question. Maybe that's something that, again, they were trying to be more vanilla on. But I'm not as concerned about the defense because I think that was Spags playing soft. Maybe that was Spags respecting Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's reputation. But
And he always does that when he plays Brady. Doesn't do it against any other QB, just against Brady.
yeah, and I just feel like as Brady gets older, it doesn't work, right? And I said this earlier before you got on, Gooch, but to me, like, it doesn't work. You play Brady vanilla and you only send 4 pass rushers, Gooch, I think that makes Tom Brady feel like he can play another 10 years. If he's worried about where the pass rush is coming the whole game and he's picking himself up off the ground every play, he's reevaluating his life decisions and his body is feeling it. He's 44 years old. His body is feeling every single one of those hits. Whether you get the sack or not, as long as you can get the hit, and that's not always the case, as we saw, on that one bogus late hit call. But anyway, Robert says people slamming Watson on coverage, but as a rookie, he has excellent position and is getting a ton of experience. Yeah, I thought it was kind of an up and down game for Watson. I think the biggest knock from people was, him not getting his head turned around, and that's not something we've seen, from him in the previous 3 games. It's not like a consistent thing like it was out of Charvarius Ward, per se. But I think that was about the only real knock I saw was you got to get your head around, and one, because if you just face guard and you're not getting your head around, it seems like you're way more likely to draw a DPI flag. But 2, it's really hard to properly defend if you don't know when and where the ball is. How are you timing anything?
Let's keep in mind he's a 7th round pick from a small school going against the team's number 1 receiver on a few occasions, and not even just number 1. Like, Mike Evans would be considered a superstar wide receiver in the league. So, and there's not very many of them. I mean, you have your elites, Tyreek, Jamar, D-Hop, you know what I'm saying? But then 4 or 5 through 15 or 20 has Keenan Allen, Mike Evans in that realm. You know what I mean? And also too, again, 7th round pick, he's still learning. You know what I'm saying? And he was on an island a few times, and he's lived up to his passer grade so far, where QBs were only completing 37 or 40% against him. Because, I mean, Mike Evans caught a lot of balls, but it was all in pretty much garbage time when they were down 20 and we were running prevent.
Right. Yeah, and most of Evans' catches, it's not like I'm counting that against the defenders, whether it was Watson or Snead, or whoever, because a good deal of those were perfect passes and perfect catches, and again, those are times as Chiefs fans we don't like to, but you got to tip your hat to the other team at times. Sometimes the other team plays perfect, on a particular play, and you have to tip your hat to them. You can't just expect that that you can play perfect and the other team can't ever play perfect. Uh, and so if they do play perfect, it's because of your defense. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But again, I think the one knock though is that's a process thing. You want Watson to be turning his head around, and that's not something we hadn't seen from him the first 3 weeks. I feel like he had done a good job at it. Um, but yeah, you're nitpicking at that point. But for me, I felt like early on in this game that Watson, or not Watson, that Spags should have been bracketing Evans. It felt like we didn't really see much out of anyone else. And I know that Brait had a few plays there until he left with a concussion. He was probably like the mid guy. So at that point, the read was probably Evans, Brait, Fournette, but that's just the way that it felt. And I thought, to me, it's like you got to bracket Evans. At the very least, you want two guys hitting him. So even if he does make a perfect catch, you have a chance of knocking the ball out, a bit better when you have two guys hitting him. And so that was kind of my thinking with it. So, but yeah, I'm not going to knock Watson because I thought he did well. That's just something, that in the moment it's a little concerning from a process standpoint. You want to see him get his head turned around there and not fall into any kind of bad habits there. We saw enough of that with Charvarius Ward. But yeah, as Gooch said, 7th round pick, and he's filling in for a 1st round pick, and the production hasn't really dropped off. So take that for what you will there. So see, Holly's with us here. Hey, Holly, it's good to see you. I've been in a couple chats now where you were there. Saw you in the KC Chiefs one, and then the RGR one, right? So I didn't comment. Oh, I guess I made one comment in the KC Chiefs one, but yeah. So Gooch, I actually have, as everybody saw, unlike last night, I actually have the ability to share my pictures and videos here. So, kind of to point out, I want to use this video. We were going to talk about it to talk about kind of the Colts game in reverse, but
before you get into that,
stop Nick Bolton me.
In honor of Holly being in the chat, I'd like to say thank God that kicker made his kicks, and shout out to Tommy Townsend and his one punt today. You know what I'm saying? It's always a good deal. And that's not a knock. It's always a great thing when your punter only sees the field one time. You know what I'm saying? You're doing something right.
Well, I mean, other than handling those PATs and field goal attempts.
He even took that. They had a high snap on the 32-yarder, and he got that down fast. Shout out to him. That's a process to catch it away from where you're expecting it, still get it down and spun right, so that the kicker can go through his by the time, because the kicker's already started his motion when the ball is snapped. So in order to get a high snap down and spun, so he could still complete his process. You don't think about it that much until you start watching, how many hours is spent doing that and the detail involved. And they're not screaming, hut, hike or whatever like that. He's just really just opening his hand, and that's the signal, So just wanted to give a shout out to the special teams. They did really well today.
Right. Yeah, it was.
And Bucker might be able to sit until the Bills game.
Yeah, I'm happy for Matthew Wright, and I told you guys last night. Um, some of the reason I felt more comfortable with him and some of those kicks he's had, he's already had in the NFL, and he already had a good career field goal percentage. Even though it's limited size of what I think it was 28 kicks or whatever. So I'm going to throw this up really quick, and then we're going to get to Holly's questions and comments and Robert's as well here. But I just want to throw this out here. It kind of partly goes into Holly's question, so I guess I'll go ahead and throw that up there. She said, yeah, good win, but owing to the large number of points scored on both sides, what do you think of the defenses? And I'm going to throw that up there because I think it kind of goes into this video. I was going to show it last night just to kind of, talk a little bit, end our talk on the Colts loss. But I want to show it tonight as an example of, some of the creative things that defenses can do. And it felt like this game was missing. And I was more focused on the Chiefs side, but I think you could say it was missing as well from the Buccaneers side. And that's kind of one of the things after last week, why I think the offense looked better. So I'm going to show this. I'll give this quick answer a little bit before I show this, though, in that I'm really thinking, Holly, just like a couple of years ago, week 12, I'm really thinking these two coaching staffs are holding back, because of the possibility they could face each other in the Super Bowl. Now, I initially want to say I don't think there's a shot that the Buccaneers are in the Super Bowl, but I'm pretty sure I thought the same thing a couple of years ago as well. So I'm not going to fully go there, but I want to show this. It's it was on YouTube from Ted Nguyen. I think that's his name, even though he has me blocked. I've been trying to get him to unblock me, even said I would donate to a charity of his choice if he unblocks me, because I think he was really insensitive, or really too sensitive the day he blocked me. I thought we were having a discussion, and apparently he's a bubble boy or something. But anyway, so I'm still promoting his channel and his content. He writes for The Athletic, and tweets out great stuff as well. So I'm going to show this little clip, and he shows two plays of what the Colts did. And, this is kind of the, it's almost, it really is almost like a chess match where you're setting up your opponent to try to get them to do something. And that's what they're going to have to do because you do this. And then, so you have this plan for when they do that type of thing. And you'll see what I'm talking about here, because I'm going to share this for you guys to watch here. And so, I think you'll be able to see what I'm talking about on here. So if I can get this to actually play now. Here we go.
Late in the game to try to confuse the Chiefs' protection that caused them key pressures. So the line's going to slide left here, which means that the running back, Jerick McKinnon, is going to have that linebacker in protection. So what they're going to do is going to have that linebacker pick the right tackle, and they're going to have defensive end Quiddy Page go inside of him. So now McKinnon has to pick him up. McKinnon is 5'9", 209 pounds, so he stands no chance. He runs right through him and is able to get to Patrick Mahomes and cause a pressure and an air throw. So later in the game, in a key red zone series, they run odd mirror, which is a strategy some teams have used successfully against Mahomes. Basically, it's a way to contain a quarterback with a four-man rush. So they wait till Mahomes points the mic out and set the protection to slide left. As soon as they know this, they set up their defense. So they can run odd mirror to flush Mahomes out to the right. So what's going to happen is they're going to have DeForest Buckner rush hard from the left edge to get Mahomes to feel that pressure. Then Giannis Ngakoue is going to rush inside to make Mahomes flush out of the pocket right. That linebacker there is basically a quarterback spy. But as soon as he sees Mahomes leaves, he's going to aggressively pursue him. So Ngakoue does such a good job that he causes a holding penalty. You can see that linebacker just trigger towards Mahomes as soon as he moves towards the right. and they caused an incompletion and gets the Chiefs a 4th down, and they missed a field goal right after this.
All right. I hope you guys got that audio. If not, that was probably a wasted 2 minutes for you, or a minute and a half there. Gooch, can you tell me, were you able to hear that? I should have asked you after the first few seconds. Or somebody in the chat. Gooch probably is on the toilet. I can see you're unmuted, Gooch, but I can't hear you. I don't know why he blocked me, Holly. I know it probably stems because at some point, I think before they moved to Vegas, he was covering the Raiders, and I don't know. There's probably some discussion there that to me it was a discussion, and to him, listen. I mean, if you deal with people on Twitter all day, every day, I can see why some people have a short fuse, but I didn't think it warranted. He apparently thought it was. So, but whenever someone retweets his stuff, I at least can see it. So there's that, and I can always see his stuff on The Athletic as well, since I pay for that. But anyway,
and I heard it loud and clear. The problem that I have with that explanation that he gave is, yeah, Indianapolis was running a stunt right there and stuff like that, but it's not nothing that Tampa Bay didn't do tonight. I think the biggest difference is the fact that Trey wasn't in there. And then, of course, then you're asking McKinnon without the guy who normally plays that guard position to try and block that guy one-on-one. But, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And sure, McKinnon can't do it, but we were missing a key component in that position. And, I mean, we were just having an overall bad game. Like, what did we discuss? We left 14 points maybe on the board. I mean, the game should have been over anyway. But, live and learn. I mean, Tampa Bay tried the same thing tonight mostly on Orlando's side, and McKinnon was in for more snaps than the other running backs, and they seemed to do just fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I'd have to go back and watch the all 22. I would just say that, if that's the case, again, and I think I said it last night, when these teams do this, and it is an advantage to them. They're looking for weaknesses, and they're throwing things at, our offensive line, Pat, whoever. They're throwing things at them that they haven't seen before as a way to attack. And, I've said multiple years now that Mahomes is like a virus or a bacteria, and defensive coordinators and their schemes are like trying to like throwing an antibiotic or some kind of medicine at him. If you don't kill him, if you don't kill a type of bacteria, it mutates and it gets stronger. It learns from almost dying, and it mutates and it gets stronger, and it becomes harder to kill. That's how I see Mahomes and the offense. Except for they get multiple chances. You might beat them one game, you might beat them 1 year, but they're going to continue to adapt. They're going to continue to get stronger. They're going to continue to learn from those things. So, I'd have to go back and watch it. I didn't see, there wasn't anything that stuck out to me, that was like that. And there were videos, I think, from the Chargers game that were similar, where they did the same thing. They did similar kind of manipulations. And so, I think that one, if that's the case, Gooch, then clearly, it was the wake-up call, like I said last night, that Andy Heck and the offensive line needed, and they had been working on some of these things, right? I think I said last night, it's kind of like special teams a couple of years ago against the Titans, where they had almost blocked multiple field goals, and then they did block the game-winning field goal, and then we find out that they had been watching tape. Who knew that other teams did that? And they knew what our signal was for snapping the ball to kick the field goals, which is how the guy was able to continually get good jumps. Who knew you can do things like that by watching film and studying your opponent? Right. And so that was kind of when that happened, it was a wake up call to Dave Tope. It's like sometimes you kind of run on autopilot and you forget to think things through more strategically. So, I think that some of the things that have been happening on the offensive line was kind of a wake-up call, because our offensive line, the offensive line for the most part is talented. Individually, they're talented, right? And as a unit, they were so strong last year for the most part, to where, it's kind of like, again, if you're the hunted, you're constantly going around putting out fires. And if there's an area where you feel like, okay, this area is good, we don't have to worry about that, we can breathe here. It's almost human nature to do that. Well, other teams are still looking for ways to beat you. And while, you're kind of resting, against that rock that is your offensive line, other teams are looking to use that to their advantage. And so, kudos to the offensive line, kudos to Andy Heck, that, they're continuing to learn and grow, because that's what we want to see. Same thing from the defense. Even if they weren't purposely being vanilla, even if they were trying really hard, and they still gave up all those points, which I really doubt, especially once we got a good lead. That's a Spag staple. I mean, a lot of those points were almost garbage time. And I know it doesn't feel that way, and we don't want Andy to think that way. We want him to keep his foot on the gas, which, kudos to them. It seemed like they did a pretty good job of not letting up. That's kind of another one. But yeah, if they know that McKinnon's your best pass pro guy, and they make it so that you have Kwity Paye on him, kudos to the Colts for that. I'd like to see him do that against Pacheco, but it is what it is.
Man, Pacheco, that guy's a beast.
Speaking of Gooch,
just watching him run, he has so much more. It pops off the TV or off the screen how much more explosion he has than Clyde. It stands out. And Holly, to add to Keys and your question about the D, I don't think they give up more than 21 if not for the interception. I think if the interception doesn't happen and they get to sit and rest again, I don't think the score gets higher than 21. I really don't.
And let's not forget that at least one of those drives was zebra powered,
right,
and prolonged.
Right. So I mean, I think for as many times as they were out there, and for as long as they were out there, you take out the interception, I think 31's not bad. I mean, look at it this way. This is how you can compare. Okay, we gave up 31. We've been giving up less than 27. We went against, compared to Tampa Bay's defense, who's only averaging giving up one touchdown a game. And nobody scored more than 17 against them yet all season until we did it. If you compare the defenses, I mean, we did a really great job tonight.
Right. Yeah, again, if you do fan math, that's what I'm going to call it, right? If we do fan math here, Holly, let's think about this. All right, so, as Gooch said, if you take away the interception there, that takes away a touchdown, right? Was it a touchdown they got off of that?
Yeah, it was a touchdown.
If you take away that bogus defenseless receiver call against one Thornhill, that's a change of 4 points, because they're kicking a field goal there. They're not scoring a walk-in touchdown, right? So we're at what, 11 points right there. And then if you take the one drive, and I think it is a separate drive, right? That was zebra powered and prolonged. That's another touchdown right there. So you're talking about 17 or 18 points right there just from those three things. So I mean it's kind of interesting how, and even if you want to say, well, fan math is bogus math or whatever, that's fine. But you can look at, right, we can look at, okay, we gave up what, 31 points or whatever it was. We gave up this many points. And we can get lost in looking at that number and not thinking through, okay, there was the 4 points extra, from the bogus one Thornhill penalty. There was the 7 points off of the Mahomes interception that, there towards the end, whatever happened. And so, it boils down to a couple plays and a penalty here or a penalty there. And so at the end of the day, is it really that bad of a performance?
You can't call fan math bogus, because two people who make a lot more money than we do talking about sports will include that in their takes. Oh, it was a lot further apart than the score would tell you. If they didn't do this, that, and the other, they wouldn't have scored this, blah, 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 blah. I never look at it like that, because you get too deep down a hole for that. But I do compare, like, Tampa, who's a top 3 defense and only giving up a touchdown and 17 points maximum the first 3 games, versus our very young, very, very, very young, both age and football-wise, defense. And
right.
to hold Tom Brady, who, has seen everything in his 20 years, to hold him to even 31, I would call that put a feather in your cap. I don't know if you saw the stat at the end. Tom Brady has scored 31 points 130 times, and he's 124-5, or 124-6 now. Like, so that, I mean, you should, like, don't sneeze at it. We gave up 31, but 31 to Tom Brady is almost a guaranteed win any other time. And our defense kept them out of that end zone. I mean, I think they did well. I'll give them if I had to grade it, Holly, without Gay, without McDuffie, I didn't see Leo Chanel much. Karlaftis didn't really have a big impact. I'd still give him a B.
Yeah, and the touchdowns they did score, unless I'm forgetting one here, they weren't gimmies. Like, Mike Evans earned his touchdowns. Again, perfect throws, perfect catches there. And so,
I think we're going to be. You know what I think? This is just me, and you may have said it before, Keys, and if you did, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to steal your shine, but I think this little 4-game stretch without probably our second best linebacker and our number one corner, our number one pick for corner, because Sneed's our number one corner. Can you imagine how good they're going to be with a secondary of Reed, Thornhill, Sneed, McDuffie, and Watson?
And you can go ahead and expand that, because one, we did see some good out of Brian Cook as well. But go ahead and expand it and tell us who the linebackers are in front of those guys as well.
I mean, that's Bolton and Gay, dog. That's
right. That back 7 or 8, when we're in nickel or dime or whatever, those 7 or 8 guys, that's a legit 7 or 8 right there,
Really
and then
is.
you throw Chris Jones in there, that's 9 guys on the field right there that are looking like studs.
And if Karlaftis and Dunlap do half of what they expect them to do, this could be a really scary defense at the wrong time for playoff teams. Because this defense is only going to get better. I mean, I've never seen. I mean, think about all the guys. Like, they're all under 25 except for Reed in that secondary. From the linebackers back, they're all younger than 25. That's crazy.
Right. I'm going to try to get through some of the chat here because you guys have some great stuff, Holly and Robert. But Holly says, appreciate Tommy's holding skills, having to adapt to different kickers during Butker's injury. And, you know, you make a great point there, and that's something we can get lost on, right? And it's really something we get lost on a lot of things. You know, basically, if everything's working, you know, we have a tendency to not think of it. And I kind of already talked about that in, you know, talking about the coaching staff with the offensive line before you have teams, you know, specifically scheming to play with the offensive line, right? If it's working, if there's no smoke, you know, there's no fire, you don't really worry about walking over to that area with the fire extinguisher. And so, you know, it is easy to overlook special teams. And you're right to point out Tommy's holding skills here. It's not an easy thing. He went from Harrison Butker to Matt Amendola to Matthew Wright. And so, you know, that's no small thing. We did talk about that snap, right? That he brought down really quickly. So yeah, you know, it's easy for us to make our little joke about, you know, Tommy made it, you know, basically the whole game, it looked like he wasn't even going to get in and have a punt. And so it's easy to make that joke, you know, and be like, where's Tommy at? But he had his impact on his game, you know, on the game in other ways, including this, that we tend to not look at because we don't notice those things unless there is a mess up. So, you know, we do want to be better than that. So thank you for pointing that out, Holly. Go ahead.
I also want to point out that we make jokes about Tommy, or we make jokes about punters in general. You know what I'm saying? But trust me, punters don't want to punt either. You know what I'm saying? Pat McAfee even said, he's like, he hated punting because it means the offense failed. And now he's going out there to kick the ball to somebody, you know, to give it to the other team. And he didn't want to punt. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not punting, then your team's successful.
I think there is one exception, though. Free agent punters who chose to go to the Raiders clearly liked punting. Raiders and Lions, you know, before this year.
Special shout out to the Raiders for beating the Broncos today. And making sure they're no longer in first place. We appreciate that as Chiefs fans.
You know, interestingly, at least on Twitter, there was a lot of controversy about do you root for the Raiders to go 0-4, or do you root for the Broncos to lose, or do you root for a tie? And I mean, that was my opinion. You know, that was my opinion. Because a tie still counts as a half a win in the standings. And I don't want the Broncos to have 2.5 wins in the standings. And, you know, I thought it would be funnier for us to hear all the Raiders fans from prison mockingly saying, let's ride. So, yeah, I'm happy with the results of that one. So. But anyway, so Robert says, solid breakdown. But as you pointed out, what is the Chiefs' plan B to address this? Saul Patrick get the ball out quicker today. So, you know, I think that's part of it. And, you know, again, as I said last night, that was kind of my thought. Like, I think it was Matt Derrick who was talking about, the Chiefs and their adjustments and making halftime adjustments during the last game, the Colts game. And my response to him was, why are we going into games with this mentality? Doesn't it make more sense to go into a game with your game plan being we're going to do the short passes to begin with, and if the shots there, will eventually lead up to taking it, instead of the game plan being we're going to look for these slow developing plays off the bat, even though we've seen how teams have played us the first 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to keep trying to force these slow developing, vertical plays and see what happens. No, come out with the quick stuff, and then you can adjust from there based on what the defense is doing. Yeah, you can throw in a deep shot every once in a while, but that's just what made sense to me. So yeah, I think I don't know if that was their plan tonight. Obviously, the running game was going, so that helped. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do, because I think as the offensive line comes together, I think as they form their identity, right? And Andy said as much. Between all the cooks in the kitchen, they really haven't formulated their identity yet. They still have to get in sync. Andy and Eric and Matt Nagy and that whole room, and get in sync and figure out what they're going to do, who they are. Maybe this game was the start of that. We don't know until we see them next week, right? So we can speculate, we can hope so, because we saw Sky Moore get more involved. We saw Jody Fortson return to the field. Not that he was hurt, but we hadn't seen him, last week. We got to see them in this game. Things looked great with them in, right? So, hopefully moving forward, they figure out a way to get these guys on the field. I think the worst thing they can do is say, we got Juju in free agency, we got MVS in free agency, and we need to force feed these guys to get them rolling. I think that's the worst thing you can do.
I also want to point out that what should help the defense, Todd Bowles, as a head coach and defensive coordinator, has never given up 40 points until today. That's 5 years of being a defensive coordinator or a head coach. He's never had a team give up 40 points until today. And that's maybe they're finding, like maybe they figured out that Eric needs to wash the food, Nagy needs to prepare it while Andy's cooking. You know what I'm saying? Let Andy cook for a while. Because it looked like he was doing a lot more talking this week into that headset. So he was probably calling more plays than normal. And it looked good out there. It looked fluid. Not saying that EB doesn't call plays or whatever, but I think it's all attributed. Who was calling this game today? Somebody said that Andy, they had a pre-production meeting. They had a pre-production meeting, and Andy came in and said, well, my offensive line needs to play a little better. And Collinsworth was like, if you know Andy, that means that he rode them all this week to step their game up. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's maybe they're figuring it out, and this is just step one. It's not going to get any easier the next, besides the Raiders game. But you've got the Bills and Niners still. You know what I'm saying? Is that right?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
And the Niners aren't going to be no pushovers, even though Jimmy G did his best Orlovsky interpretation last week. They're a team that's built like the Bills to beat us and to win now. You know what I'm saying? So, I think they are starting to figure it out. Go ahead, Keith. I didn't cut you off.
No, you're fine. And talking about the upcoming games here, just want to point out through these 4 games, Gooch, where did we see this team? we had it down, I think, anywhere from 1-3 to 4-0, right? And we're sitting here at 3-1 with one game in the Colts game that we clearly should have won. Maybe we shouldn't have won the Chargers game, and so it makes up for it there. But I think if we were talking about this 2 months ago, and someone had told us you're 3-1 through the first 4 games, and your defense is playing like a bunch of veterans who have been together for 5 years already, we would have been delighted, right? I think if someone even gave us the score of this game, we hadn't watched any of it. If they just given us the score and say, you're going to beat Tampa Bay, what was the score? 40, 43,
41, 31.
If they had told us that, I think we would have been happy with that. 3-1 beating Tampa Bay 41-31. I think we would have taken both of those things and we would have been excited. And so, this is me being as optimistic as I can, guys. So I'm not running on a lot of sleep, so that probably helps it a little bit here. But anyway, Holly said CEH is doing very well thus far. Yeah, he's definitely had some good runs. I think the offensive line has opened up some holes for him. It'll be interesting to see the updated rushing yards over expected after including week 4. I know through the first 3 weeks, and we talked about this last night, CEH was somewhere around 20% on having rushes that were over the expected yards. While Pacheco was nearly 50%, so nearly 1 out of every 2. And McKinnon was, I want to say, like 28%, but he's actually averaging less than one. He's actually averaging -1 yards over expected overall, which means that he's getting 1 less yard on average than what's expected out of him. And so that doesn't mean every run is like that, but he's had some negative runs, which is a good segue, at least partially, because one of the things I wanted to talk about, Gooch, that kind of bugged me on the negative side is McKinnon's kind of a small guy, skinny guy, not short like Clyde, but I'm sick of seeing him get the ball on 3rd and 1 and shorter. Give it to Pacheco, give it to Burton, if you have, even give it to CEH. But McKinnon isn't converting these. He's not strong enough. He's a quick guy, and we're not really doing anything to where we're utilizing his quickness on 3rd and 1. We're also making it pretty easy for the defense to key, right? Like, why not have 2 guys back there? Why not throw a receiver back there with them? Give the defense a little something extra to think about. It's almost like we just think that teams think we're going to pass it every 3rd and 1. We're not giving them a whole lot to think about on these 3rd and 1s, which is fine if you're giving it to a guy who has the power and the explosiveness like Pacheco to do it, or you're handing it off to Burton, who's only a yard or 2 behind the offensive line, as opposed to handing it off in shotgun to a running back who's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't know about you, but I've just kind of been annoyed with seeing those 3rd and 1 or 3rd and inches handoffs to McKinnon. And that's not a knock on him overall, right?
I can see your point there. I think they do it to try and throw the defense off. The problem is they're not throwing them off because they're handing it off. Like, McKinnon's their best pass pro running back until they decide they're going to let Pacheco do it. And so they stick him in there with the intent of making the defense think it's going to be a pass, but then they hand it off. And like you said, McKinnon he's hitting the line and that's it. It's almost like the line of scrimmage goes vertical for him and he hits it and doesn't go anywhere.
I mean, yeah, I understand you use McKinnon a lot on 3rd down pass pro, but I think the problem with what you're saying is then you have to at least fake it being an RPO, because most defenses, or any good coached defense, knows that, what's the number one thing you do? You watch the offensive line. If it's a pass, they're dropping back, right? If they're moving forward, it's a run, or, at the very least, depending on how aggressively they run forward, it's an RPO because they can't get upfield. And so if it doesn't work if your receivers aren't, you're not having your receivers, somebody make it look like they're running a route to where it can be an RPO. It would be what I would counter, that with. You're making it too easy for them. So I don't know. They got to figure something out, there. If they wanted to do like traditional under center play action pass, that would be one thing. And then you can do those runs like that. But I think the way they're doing it right now, and I could be wrong, maybe those were RPOs, or maybe there were something in there to make it look like it, but it sure didn't look like it was working. Maybe on some of those third downs, you can keep your fullback in there, or you can move your tight end into that H-back position, and then you can have him take the handoff. I just don't think you can have McKinnon do it there, because it's not working. If you want to do that option that the Chiefs did earlier in the game, and I don't know who the running back was in there, because Mahomes pitched or didn't pitch it, and I was more focused on him and watching to make sure he didn't get himself hit. But anyway, I don't know. I don't want to rant too much about it. There's just some of these little things I'd like to not see, or see them tweak. Robert says screens worked great when you commit to the run and execute. I knew people were going to enjoy particularly at least one wide receiver screen that stuck out to me there. So he also says that Wiley needs some props. They were not calling him out for getting beat. Yeah, I mean, the offensive line for the most part, at least on first view, it'll be interesting what we see when we go back and when they release the all 22. But, at least on first view, I thought things, looked great. But I was also anticipating the Bucs defensive line. They got some strong dudes there. So I was expecting them to just win, at times just based on their own physical ability. Holly says that Pacheco almost looks like Tyreek 2.0. What was that, Gooch?
I wouldn't say Tyreek 2.0. I'd say Kareem Hunt 2.0. All we got to do is test his kicking skills.
No, we don't want him to do anything like that. But he does wear number 10, so there's that. But yeah. I don't think I would necessarily say Kareem because of what Ollie also says about that speed. I think at 4.37, 4.38, it really doesn't matter. It's about a quarter of a second faster than Kareem. Of course, that's without pads, but I think Kareem's a bigger dude and a better route runner and catcher, and has some deceptive longer speed on there. But yeah, he's certainly fun to watch. I know that much. So off the top of my head, I can't think if there is a Chiefs running back that I would compare him to. Let me see here. See this one. See if I can pull this up really quick. Nope. Not even Larry Johnson, because Larry Johnson ran a slower 40 than Kareem Hunt did. So,
you know who he is?
What's that?
I got it. You know who he is? I've got it.
Okay, let's hear it.
He is a shorter Some odd man over.
I'm going to have to sleep on that one.
Definitely a more athletic one.
Yeah. Robert says Pacheco will continue to get better as he gets more touches. He's earning them for sure. Yeah. And that's something they said on the broadcast, right? About them thinking that Andy kind of had this little twinkle in his eye when he smiled. You know, he had this little sly smile and a twinkle in his eye when he's talking about Pacheco, you know, but they're not overtly saying it. But the sense that Chris Collinsworth got was that they believe that he's going to be a star. And I would agree with that they do believe so. And I do think that they have a reason to, you know, as Gooch has said multiple times, all this kid has done as worked on things he wasn't good at or didn't have experience at and made himself better at it. You know, you add in the speed, you know, you add in having an offensive line and a coaching staff who will help him on the things that he wasn't good at, the things that made him a seventh round pick, right? And I think for sure, you know, I think Gooch is hitting the nail on the head here with what he said for months now. I think Chris Collinsworth is on the right track. I think they genuinely believe that, and I think they genuinely should believe that. Because the better coaching he gets and the more coaching he gets and the more experience he gets, I think he's only going to get better and better and better there. So anyway, Holly says, good point, Gooch. Our defense did well considering we were missing Gay and McDuffie. And don't forget Mike Dana. Mike Dana was doing great things before he got injured, you know. So yeah, you start to throw these guys in there. And I think with I don't know, I'm forgetting Joe Collin, the defensive line coach, and Spags, as they start to figure the defensive line mix out, you know, I would expect that to get better as well. I'll just leave it at that. I feel like some coaching staffs throw everything out at the beginning, and you see some teams start fast and they fade down the stretch. I think the Chiefs throw things out in chunks or try to, you know, withhold as long as they can. And I could be wrong on that. That's just kind of my feeling. And so I think that's more of the right strategy. I understand wanting to get off to a hot start, but then you start to fade, you know, toward the end of the season. Teams are seeing what you're doing. You've thrown all your best work, you know, already on film for everybody to watch. So by the time you get to the playoffs, if you even make the playoffs, you don't have very much more to throw out there. And then it's just a matter of you need to execute better than the other team. Whereas, you know, I feel like the Chiefs do hold back somewhat. And so, you know, they realize that it's a marathon, not a sprint, basically. Robert says Cook was sharp tonight. Yeah, you know, I just remember a few plays, but I was also I was working out during part of this, so you know I was still watching the game, but I my mind was in two places. So, but looking forward to seeing the all 22 and seeing what they did here. Julian is with us, or at least was with us. We're about 20 minutes behind here in the chat, saying, hey, Julian, if you're still with us, it's good to have you on here. Holly. Karloftis, Jones, Cook, Bolton, Snead looked really great. Yeah, you know, and again, once we keep adding the guys back, it's going to be even that much more fun. Dana, Gay, McDuffie. I mean, again, we didn't think the defense was going to be this good this early. Then we take these 3 guys away. We're still pretty good. When we add them back, how much better are we going to be? How much better are we going to be after the bye when they can really look at things and reset, or, really start throwing layers onto things? Like, this should be fun. This isn't a position we've been in, during Mahomes' tenure at quarterback, where we're having a decent defense and we're dreaming about how much better it's going to be at the bye. It could be a top defense. I don't think that's homerish. I don't think that's Kool-Aid snorting. I think that's being an optimistic realist. It really could, with what we've seen so early and with the pieces missing. So, but there are other defenses that could be that way too. The last time we faced the Bills, and probably this time as well, we'll be facing them without Tre'Davious White, who is a good cornerback. We don't know if he'll ever be able to stay healthy again, but, he's a good cornerback. So they have the potential to, continue to get better as well. So anyway, Holly says, Justin Reed also, but did he get hurt? It seemed like there were a couple of plays that he got shaken up on, but I might have missed part of the Chiefs post game. Well, I know I missed the beginning part, so I don't know if Andy said anything on there about that or not. Holly says, point well taken. Tommy was a UDFA, and I'm sure he wanted to get onto a team where he didn't have to punt a lot. I'm sure he was just happy to get on a team, period. And then probably, I would think, talking to Tobe, who, liked his arm, I'm sure that probably made Tommy, a little excited about some of the possibilities there. But, you also have Dustin Colquitt on the team at that time to kind of pick his brain on. And it's a team who was winning, right? So I don't know that punters are like, well, I never want to punt. I think their concerns are just a little bit different than other guys, just because of the nature of the position. So, Gooch, I know you got an answer for this one. Holly says, where do you think Hardman is at this point this season? I know we talked about this a little bit last night, and I know that Gooch had some very pointed words to say here. So if he doesn't jump on, I think I can summarize what he said last night fairly well. Otherwise, if you haven't seen that one, you can go back and watch it here. Gooch, are you still with us? You sitting on your throne? I'll just say this, Holly. I believe Gooch's position was that he's very disappointed that it seems like at this point, Hardman still doesn't know the playbook the way he should. We've got new guys on the team that already know the playbook better than him, and know where they're supposed to be at better than him, and run their routes better than him. So I believe Gooch said last night he thinks that Hardman's gone after this season. Just kind of really, really down on what we've seen from him thus far. So, and I think overall I would kind of agree with that, right? Like, you're in year 4 with Patrick Mahomes and this offense. You should know it inside and out. You and Patrick should have, a good connection. Why don't you? So, I think there's some concern there. That's not to say that where you start the season is where you finish it. And I'm at least going to root for him to continue to get better, for him to do whatever it takes, and for him to finish strong. But I think that's our answer on that one. Holly says was disturbed about Sky Moore not visualizing the ball and catching the kick returns. I think you mean the punt returns against the Colts last week. Yeah, whatever the case was there, I think part of that is it comes down to Tobe's philosophy, right? At the end of the day, I think what they got out of that game for someone who hadn't returned punts before, before now, I believe what I was told was he hadn't done it in college. So this is a new thing to him. I think at the very least, the positive takeaway is they had film where they could sit and they could talk, where Tobe could explain his thought process, where Sky could, explore what his thought process was on each of those punt returns. They could talk about how the situations were similar or different, and the process things, right? We can't go by the results. Like, you can't go back you can't go back and evaluate the play by the results. You have to go back and do it by the process. And Tobe knows what that process is, and Sky knows what that process is. We all probably have our own opinions on what that process should be. But that's where the evaluation has to be, is what Tobe's process is, what he's told them their process should be, and making that clear to them, because that's what you got to judge the play by. Is you're at the 5-yard line or whatever, and you're having to move over 3 or 4 yards because you can't see the ball. What does Tobe want you to do in that situation? If you lose track of the ball or you can't see it, the sun's in your eye, do you run? Does he want you to move away so you don't chase after the ball anymore? You make sure the ball doesn't hit you. I don't know what Tobe's process is. I'm just throwing it out there. This is the kind of thing that I would think and hope that they talked about this last week more in depth of what the process needs to be moving forward. Because at this point, last week is last week. I say this to my wife all the time. What happened in the past doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's already happened. It's a learning experience, right? Same thing with history. When I'm teaching history to my kids, the value of it is learning from other people's mistakes, learning from your own mistakes. And so, you can try to dwell on it, but you're much better off evaluating what happened, trying to learn from it, working to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So this game, things looked good. So hopefully they iron down that process, and he continues to grow from it. So Raiders beat the Broncos, didn't they? Good news for the AFC West. Yes, Holly, they did. So the Raiders are 1-3. The Broncos are 2-2. What are the Chargers? 2-2. Chiefs are 3-1. Sounds like Holly agrees with me. Why have they given it to McKinnon on 3rd and 1? You heard what Gooch's reasoning was, and I wouldn't. I understand that reasoning. Again, I pointed out, though, all you got to do to see if it's a pass or not on 3rd down is does the offensive line drop back? And good defenses and good defensive coordinators, good studiers of film, good defensive linemen, they will study each individual offensive line, because each offensive lineman has tails. Whether that's the spacing of their feet, the angle of their feet, the amount of pressure they put on their fingers in the dirt. Each offensive lineman has these tells that as a defensive lineman, okay, this offensive lineman does this to get leverage on a run play. this offensive lineman does this to prepare for pass blocking, right? Which is why you'll see offensive tackles a lot of times, they make it obvious, right? It's not even a question. The way they're set up, they don't even try to pretend. They just let you know this is I'm setting up for a pass here because they need that advantage on this play. And so that's my biggest thing. But if it is an RPO where you're blocking downfield anyway, you're taking advantage of your yard or whatever you're allowed to block downfield, that may be one thing. But we also know that that's one of the things that's killed some of the aggressiveness of the offensive line in their run blocking, because they can't run downfield. They can't really maul guys downfield if it's an RPO because they don't know whether Pat's handing the ball off or if he's throwing it. And if they get downfield, they're going to get flagged for it. So, yeah. Anyway, Hefe is with us. Hefe, it's good to see you. Good to have you with us. Holly says Tommy Townsend's 40 was 4.75 seconds. Not bad for a punter. Yeah, that's not bad. I think probably the fastest one I can think of, fastest punter I can think of, I think is Marquette King. Maybe I don't know. Who was a punter for the Raiders? He ran a 4.67. So if Tommy was a 4.75, that's pretty good. Hefe says we just need to stay ahead of the division. Yeah, Holly, Gooch, Holly says feel free to chime in on Hardman here. I'm thinking Gooch fell asleep on the toilet. But who knows, guys? It's almost 3 a.m. his time. He has class in I think about 5 hours. So he's going to be sitting in class for 8 hours tomorrow. So, and then working. Like Gooch and Aaron are busy. So one day, hopefully soon, that'll change to where all three of us have things change to where we're able to produce content the way we want to. And there's a little light at the end of the tunnel here, as Gooch says. So Robert says, Big Red always brings that up after 8 games. Definitely agree. Yeah, I think that's about the thing about staying ahead of the division. Yeah, and remember they break the season into quarters. So we've completed quarter 1. I don't know how they're going to do it now with 17 games, but they've completed quarter 1 at 3-1. So good first quarter of the season for them. So Ollie says, sorry, punt returns, not kick returns, but Moore had a few great punt returns during the preseason, if I recall correctly. Yeah, at this point, I don't even remember. But yeah. Oh, I must be catching up here. Holly says y'all are busy. Well, yeah, they are. I'm just a stay-at-home dad, homeschooling and taking care of 8 kids. But Aaron's working 6 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. Gooch is going to school 24, 30 hours a week, taking these classes that he has to take, and then working on top of it. So yeah, the guys are definitely busy. And so, yeah, we hope to be at that point here soon where, like I said, we can, employment situation is a lot easier on everybody, and we can be producing the way we want to produce. So, but anyway, I did the impossible, and we are caught up on the chat. So, and I'm pretty sure Gooch is asleep, and I'd make an old man joke, but like I said, he really does work his butt off. So, just really busy right now. So, while normally I would aim to be funny, just really, I'm going to withhold from that to just really as a sign of respect for Gooch. So, I'm sorry you guys were stuck with me at the beginning and you've been stuck with me for the last 20, 30 minutes now, because I know Gooch has a lot of good insights or a lot of bad insights that give me ammo for arguing. Robert says, what points do we need to improve on for the Raiders? This is a good question simply because it's really hard to know, right? Like I said earlier, it's really, to me, it's what will the coaching staff do moving forward? Are we going to see more of this, or are we going to see some changes here? Is what it looks like is happening what's happening, or am I totally off here? So I'll say this, Robert. I think what needs to improve on for the Raiders, we got to continue to tighten things up with the offensive line. Obviously, we need to actually have a plan to face the reality that teams are going to attack Orlando Brown with speed. I think it's just there. I think that they have to continue to work with the new receivers. We got to see all the communication stuff get ironed out, on routes with Juju. We got to see MVS and Pat working on their connection, MVS working on his hands. And we got to see them make a concerted effort to get Sky Moore and Jody Fortson more involved in the offense. And I put in the graphic last night that was showing, basically that Sky Moore was following the same trajectory that Tyreek Hill did during his rookie season. And so we shouldn't necessarily be alarmed, and we should expect a jump, about week 8. Otherwise, it was going to continue on. If it followed Tyreek's path, it was about a steady 12 and a half snaps a game until you got to week 8. And then things, really took off, and it started to double, and then it eventually doubled again. But yeah, I think we have to start seeing Sky Moore and Jody Fortson involved more. We need to see Noah Gray start to be steady and not just flash every once in a while. We got to figure out whatever the solution is on 3rd and 1 that doesn't involve giving McKinnon the ball. On defense, it's really hard to know. Like I said, was the defensive performance more of a product of the offense jumping to an early lead? Was it a product of how Spags wanted to play Tom Brady? Was it a product of both of those things? I guess I really haven't liked, at the end of the day, our cornerbacks, our defensive backs have played good coverage, but I haven't liked necessarily the process we've went about doing it. We talked about in the Chargers game, you have 3rd and 2 and you're giving 8 yards of cushion, right? When you make it clear who Justin Herbert should throw the ball to. The guy whose defender is 8 yards away from him. We were giving up the middle to Brady and his guys. So I would like to see in this game, because you have Devontae Adams, you have Hunter Renfrow, and you have Darren Waller. Darren Waller's fast. maybe if we had Willie Gay, we would have had him involved in some way with Darren Waller. Last year I felt like we did a pretty good job. We had Tyrann Mathieu though, and Jordan Love was throwing the ball to Devontae Adams. So, but the Raiders' offensive line can be exploited. So, I think we have to put pressure on Carr in this game. We have to manipulate him. You have to look at the routes that he likes to run with Devontae Adams, and you have to drive him away from that. I showed you guys the clips of what the Colts were doing. They had a plan to drive Mahomes to the right. That's one of those things where if Devontae Adams is running routes, that are going to the left, guess what? What would you want to do? You would want to drive Derek Carr to the right. He's not throwing it to Devontae Adams then. He doesn't have Mahomes' core to be able to torque it, all the way to the left as he's rolling to the right. So it's those kind of strategic things that I want to see more from the defense. And I'll admit, I'm kind of disappointed we haven't got our first George Karlaftis sack yet, because I really thought we had a good chance last week against Matt Ryan. And I think if they'd pressured up the middle, it would have given George coming off the edge a decent chance as well. But, at the end of the day, I have no idea how much of this is part of their process. Because again, even on a more macro level, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So, is that all factored into Spags' plan? And we got to play the Raiders twice. So my guess is we're going to see a decent bit of vanilla in this first game. And we'll go from there. I think one of the things that helps is we faced Josh McDaniels before. He's faced us before, not with the Raiders, but, with the Patriots. So, yeah, we'll see. I would not expect the kind of games we had last year. I think John Gruden had a lot to do with that. I know, we kind of talked about this last night with the Gus Bradley thing that was kind of unexpected since he was the defensive coordinator there. And I know Mike Mayock has taken a lot of hits from people because of all the first rounders the Raiders had drafted who've now been cut and stuff. But I really do think a lot of that was John Gruden. I think Mike Mayock was kind of John Gruden's personal scout, and he took what what Mike Mayock did, and Gruden had, the final say over everything. And I think that included the defense. I said that last night. I think that Gruden was telling Bradley, hey, I know Andy's offense. I know what you need to do to stop it. And what Gruden wanted is what they were doing. And so all that to say, I don't think you should expect a repeat performances of last year where we were scoring 40 some points. So I think you're going to probably see a more hard fought battle this game. So I don't know if I answered your question, Robert. I wish Gooch was still with us here, because I know that he would probably have a much better answer here than I do. So, but Robert says, I hope we continue to crush the run to help against their awesome rush. Yeah, and last year we were aided a little bit. We were getting away with holding Max Crosby. So hopefully the refs don't see that like they didn't see it last year, because it would have definitely been a lot harder on our offense had they started calling those holding penalties. I don't think any Raiders are ever going to watch this channel, so I feel comfortable saying that. But if I was talking to a Raiders fan, I certainly wouldn't admit that. Hefe says, I bet Renfro will be back next week. If he got injured, I missed it. I was doing a lot of stuff around the house this afternoon. I had that game on, but I apparently missed the injury there. So, but yeah, I mean, that offense, I thought that they would be better than what they've looked so far. But at the end of the day, the offense really comes down to Derek Carr's comfort level, and the offensive line just hasn't really been there. So, okay, he was out with a concussion. Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see what they do. Was the concussion from this game? I might have completely missed all of this part. And part of it was because I was watching the game on my TV and I had it muted because I had the Red Zone channel on my iPad and I had the volume on that so I could hear the different things that were happening in all the different games. Of course, there were only 3 games on at that point, but was the concussion from this game? I'm just wondering because with everything going on with the whole Tua gate, it'd be interesting to see how teams are maybe more cautious. Even if functionally, the medical people say that this player or that player is good to go, if they're not more cautious simply because of the optics of it. Okay, it was the last game. Okay, I totally missed that then. So he didn't even play in this game? Somehow I completely missed that. Holly says the NFL and all of the medical community needs to take potential concussions and traumatic brain injuries more serious. Holly, and we talked about this last night, and I expanded it further, including, Justin Herbert and other players out there, because it just feels like some of these decisions are really stupid ones. I don't know. I've seen a lot of conflicting information about the whole Tua thing. One of the things that we said last night was, at the end of the day, for us as Chiefs fans, that's one of those areas where, we might have areas where we get frustrated with Andy, but this is one area where, as Chiefs fans, we're blessed that Andy takes really good care of Patrick. He's a competitor. Andy knows he's a competitor, but he doesn't play around with his health. That's not something we've seen, from Andy, from this organization. I don't even think, Clark Hunt would stand for that. And it probably helps that we have the best, if not the best, one of the best training staffs and medical staffs of all 32 teams, which is a testament to how, serious we take all this, and I think that starts with the Hunt family on down. And so, maybe some of that was driven by the Jovan Belcher thing. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But, the Chiefs take care of Pat. They don't try to rush him back. They don't let him come back in and play through injuries as much as he had begged, for Andy to let him at times. And so, kudos to them for that. But yeah, I take concussions seriously. I don't have all the information, and I've seen, the conflicting reports out there. But yeah, I think they do need to defer more. I think it's probably something that also as fans, we need to get better at. When when Pat, whether he did or didn't have a concussion, whatever, I know that we as fans, a good chunk of us, wanted him back as soon as possible. Not necessarily, when might be the healthiest for him to come back, right? So, but yeah, I think in some of our discussion last night, we talked about Mike McDaniels. We talked about the pressure that's on the quarterback to lie, and that's something that former Chief Jeff Allen hit on in a tweet a couple of days ago. Talking about Tua, Tua himself lying and the responsibility, being split between the team and Tua, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But, even the coaches, and we talked specifically about Mike McDaniels and, maybe some of the pressures he's under because he's a first time head coach, and he doesn't want his quarterback mad at him. His quarterback is not wanting to, say that he has a concussion or concussion symptoms or whatever because he doesn't want to come out. He understands the stigma that follows you with that, So they both are feeling pressure there. And so I think you're right in that the NFL and the NFLPA needs to find a way to take that pressure off of both parties and place it on it, in the hands of a third party that's way more cautious and way more protective of the player. They got to figure out all those mechanics, everything from the player's side, everything the player's concerned about. Some of those reasons that they don't want to disclose their symptoms or lie about their symptoms, or don't want to be taken out other than, just being a competitor and showing their teammates how tough they are. Some of those, financial things, they need to work through all of these things. Because we tend to oversimplify things that are complex. Of course, we can, make things more complex than they need to be at the same time. But you got to untangle things so that you can figure out the best way to put it together again. So definitely they need to do a better job of taking it seriously. It seems like the NFL and the NFL Players Association, they've already talked about improvements. Hopefully they continue to keep this conversation going, and it's not just a thing of optics, but it's seriously player driven, and it's something that accounts for a lot of things, and really makes a much more positive difference, and something that's honoring of past players. Right? Again, we can't bring back and undo some of the damage that a lot of these people, went through. And I don't even want to call them players because that, in a way, it kind of dehumanizes them. But the people went through went through concussions, people who ended up with CTE and had all kinds of issues, we're dishonoring them by not learning the lessons that we need to learn and implementing the things and brainstorming and exploring everything we need to make the path forward that much better for the next generation. And so, I think that's kind of the frustrating point there, is when that doesn't happen. So Holly says, just because a player passes protocol after a few days doesn't mean they're okay. And honestly, it means the protocol isn't okay, right? Whatever the protocol is, it should be set up like that. If you're passing that protocol, you should be good. So if there's a possibility you're not still good, then the protocol isn't good. Or there's broken links in the protocol, weaknesses, things that somebody is exploiting in the protocol, to where it needs to be improved. So. And we need to focus on not letting Jacobs get rolling. Yeah, I had thought at least the first couple of games that he looked like he was starting slow. But if that's something they want to focus on, they can certainly do it. We've put up the numbers of where they were rushing this year. The Bucs only had 6 rushes, and I believe the stat I put up earlier while Gooch was talking, 6 rushes and -3 yards. We last night we put up the stat that talked about the rushing yards we gave up to the Colts and the Chargers and the Cardinals, and we did an awesome job there. So if we want to do it, we can do it. If Renfro's back and you have Devontae Adams and you have Waller, that certainly makes it more difficult. My guess, though, is that Spags is going to think, well, we're not going to fully take away, the pass because, again, you can have the perfect defense dialed up. Players can make the perfect play. And Carr doesn't even necessarily have to make the perfect pass. Devontae Adams is a top receiver, so he can make the perfect catch. What you don't want to have happen is let them have a good, balanced offense to where you're caught off guard, right? And you don't want them to be able to constantly have, second and short or second medium setting up third and short, right? You want second and long to set up third and long. And so I would guess that they will make it a point to stop the run until the Raiders adjust at least. But, again, we'll see. Spags or Andy don't necessarily do what I think that they will do or what they should do. So Holly says for sure, Rick Burkholder and the medical staff are fantastic for the Chiefs. I mean, it is what it is. And, we see teams like the Chargers every year who can't stay healthy, who have quarterbacks, have lungs punctured, and all of these things. And, so that is what it is. Robert said thought the hit on Tua was out of bounds and it was not penalized, was it? Yeah, I don't remember it doing so. I mean, some of the crazy things about concussions, though, is it's not even necessarily the plays that look like concussions, right? It's the movement in the head, and those can happen on different kinds of plays. So, Tua in a recent tweet said he wants to get back to his teammates ASAP, but that's not necessarily in his best interest. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's interesting that you saw the tweets. I don't remember if it was Schefter or whoever that was talking about Tua watching the movie on the team flight home and laughing and, everything to portray him as like everything was normal. And maybe it was. I said last night, I thought it was weird that you see such a traumatic response out of him and he's put on a stretcher, taken to a hospital, and he's released not too long afterwards and allowed to fly home. Like maybe there's not a lot that they will do for concussions, but what we saw on the field, my thought was that's not something that, you soon get released from the hospital after and you fly home on an airplane after. So, sometimes you really have to keep players. You have to. And again, I said this with Mahomes, and Andy has done a fantastic job of it. You have to protect players from themselves. Andy is an established head coach. He's a top head coach. He's a Hall of Fame head coach. Mike McDaniels is just getting his start as his head coach, as a head coach. These were his third and fourth games. So you want to build a relationship with your quarterback. You also probably have pressure on the NFL because let's face it, the NFL did not want to see Josh Allen and the Bills go up against the undefeated Dolphins led by Teddy Bridgewater. Right? I mean, to me, it's as simple as that. The Dolphins front office and owner wants to see the Dolphins start out 4-0. The NFL wants to see the Dolphins have Tua because he's the leader of this dynamic offense that's led the Dolphins to be 3-0. They want to see that matchup. Tua and Waddle and Hill and Mike McDaniels, play calling genius, this young up and coming coach against Josh Allen and his weapons and that Bills defense. Just like most of us fans, right? I think if we're honest, it's kind of like the London game. How many people wanted to watch Andy Dalton lead the Saints against a pretty good Vikings team in London? It turned out to be a pretty good game, but, as people were thinking about it, that's not really a match that screams marquee matchup. It ended up being an awesome game, but anyway, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, but yeah, I think you have to take the pressure off. You have to take it out of the players' hands. You have to have a process that the player can't lie their way through. You have to have a process that, it's not up to the head coach. It's not up to that team's medical staff. The pressure is taken off and the responsibility, I guess, is taken off the team. And it can't just be an optics thing either, right? It can't just be about deniability. Not our fault. We went through the protocol. Everything was good. You got to have the protocol that is completely sound. There's no loopholes. That is ultimately conservative in favor of protecting the player and that player's health in a longevity sense. So, but yeah. Holly says, dude, I've seen several cases where people suffered a traumatic brain injury and they act okay, but the long-term consequences are bad. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know enough about it to know, how you would specifically go about developing a better protocol. I know that the NFL makes enough money. They employ enough smart people that there are enough smart people out there that they can do a lot better with it. I'm not saying that they have a perfect solution because I don't think that, the medical community is there to where the treatment is perfect. Like I said, if Tua had 2 concussions in 4 days or whatever, and what we saw, that nasty, scary response that we saw, if the medical treatment to that is him being there for less than an hour and a half or so and being released and being able to fly on the airplane back home with his teammates, you know, where are we, you know, from a medical standpoint? Maybe there's nothing they can do there. I don't know. So then what is the answer? You know, how do you know when a brain is good to go again? If someone knows those answers, I don't know. Yeah, Brian or Holly says Brian Suter, MD, has a great YouTube channel breaking down sports injuries. Yeah, I've subscribed to his channel. I've seen you know, his videos. I think they're informative. You know, I'm always just a little cautious and hesitant about someone doing a virtual diagnosis. You know, I'll just put it that way. But yeah, I definitely think that his channel is informative. You know, he makes things easier for you to understand, and so you can definitely go check out his channel. And it's not, he doesn't just cover the NFL, he covers all the different sports and the different injuries that occur there from what I've seen though. So anyway, guys, we're at 2:25 a.m. here, Arrowhead time. Gooch is clearly asleep. And so if you guys don't have any more here, we're going to hit the outro and have a great night and enjoy this win, and be prepared to take on the Raiders. So I'm going to give you guys one last call here to throw anything out, and then otherwise we're gonna pay some bills and head on out for the night. Meantime, though, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. It's definitely better with Gooch, definitely better with Aaron. Aaron gets one night off a week, and so that's one of the reasons that we were shifting to doing the Saturday night midnight lives. And then Aaron, bless him, fell asleep before midnight, and like I said, he's working six days a week, so I don't hold it against him there. But anyway, so we wanted to do this reaction, post-game reactions. We'll continue to plan on doing that after the RGR live. And so anyway, I want to thank you guys for staying with me here and watching it. If you came in after the first 5 or 10 minutes or so, I was putting up some screenshots from Twitter, some interesting stats, some recognizing Patrick's accolade and Travis's accolade. So that's what we did there. And I'm going to end here with Holly's Go Chiefs. I want to thank you guys for joining in here. We have a long season ahead of us. I don't get too optimistic with it because I'm a show me kind of guy. But you know, the defense has me feeling pretty optimistic. If the offense can do this week in and week out, you know, it makes me feel a lot more optimistic about this team as a whole. When you take the offense, the defense, and special teams and put them together, can we sustain that? Can we sustain this kind of fluidity on offense between Andy and Eric and Matt Nagy and Pat? So, yeah, this would be where Gooch would tell you, you know, make sure that you tell someone that you love them, and you know, we know this from experience, you know, and so anyway, hit the like, guys. We're bad about telling you guys that because we're more here to have fun and interact with you guys instead of intentionally growing a channel like we should. So hit the like, you know, share with your friends, leave us a comment after the video. That helps out with the YouTube algorithm. So yeah, Holly says a 40 burger is pretty good, but giving up a 30 burger, not so much. Yeah. Well, what happens in garbage time stays in garbage time. We'll leave it at that. Everybody have a good one. Have a great week. Thanks for joining.
You got your team, and we got a kingdom. Ready for war. We score and win. We're the Super Bowl.